complete a budget from start to finish. So today we're going to look at a budget for daily household. Okay, so it's for 4 months and it's from September to December. So we're going to read through the whole question and then we're going to talk through our steps. So complete the blank household budget template for the daily household using the following figures. So the opening cash in hand is 240. So before I ever do anything else, I know that that figure needs to go in twice, okay? So we said that always goes in here. It's 240 in the first month, and it also goes in as 240 in the last month, okay? Now the reason we put it into the last month is because if we think about it, my total really is from September to December. So I'm starting off my first month, you know, when I started in September I had 240, so I need to start my total with the same amount because that's the start of the total period. Okay, so I have Alan daily earns 1,700 net per month. Nisha daily earns 1,600 net per month and expects to receive a bonus of €500 in December. And net per month really just means that's what ends up in my bank account, girls, okay? The household expects to receive interest on savings of 250 in September. And then they also expect to receive €400 income from dividends in November. So if you remember, dividends are when we own shares in a company and I suppose we're getting a reward for owning those shares, okay? So it's income for me. So I'm going to read through my planned expenditure and then we're going to start. So planned expenditure. The daily household rents an apartment at a monthly cost of €850. Alan pays car tax of 190 in September. Okay, so that's in the month of September now, girls, okay? Nisha's annual car insurance is €600. This is paid monthly from September. Now, when I see annual, I know that means I have to divide by 12, okay? Because annual means for the whole year and I need a monthly figure. So the dailies will renew their annual TV licence in December at a cost of 160. Household costs are 1,100 per month except in December, and they will be 450 extra. So for December, I'll be adding on an extra 450. Monthly car running costs are expected to be 190, and there'll be an additional 150 to be paid for a car service in October. So we'll have two figures in October. Bills for light and heat are expected to be 170 in October and 260 in September. And the household also expects to pay a €380 bill for home heating oil in November. Mobile phone bills will cost the household €50 per month. Alan plans to begin a part-time college course in October. He expects to pay €400 in October to cover the cost of registration and textbooks. He also budgets for college costs of €100 in both November and December. Birthday presents will cost €80 in September and €350 will be spent on Christmas presents in December. Entertainment will cost €270 each month, except in December, and will cost an extra €250. The daily household is planning a short holiday in December, and that will cost them €800. Okay, so we've loads of information there. Before I start putting any of that in, we're going to try and do Miss Kelleher's top tips, which the first thing I always do is highlight my 3 subtotals in one colour. Okay, so I'm highlighting them in green. And the reason I always do this, girls, is because it's just too easy to get myself confused about which columns I'm using and to add an income. So if I have my 3 columns highlighted in the same colour, I am going to do, it's very unlikely that I'll do that. I'll look at my 3 columns, it draws my attention to them, and it gives me my total expenditure. Okay, so that's the idea behind that. So we're just going to start away, and we've done our opening cash. I put in the right figure and I'm going to start. So Alan Daly earns 1,700 per month. So I'm going to pop 1,700 into each of the months. And then I'm going to add all of that together. And when I do that, I get 6,800. Nisha Daly earns 1,600 every month. So I'm 1,600, 1,600, 1,600. And then they're receiving a bonus of €500 in December. So I'm adding the 500 onto the 1,600 and I get 2,100. And I end up here with a figure of 6,900. Now, what I should have said, girls, what I'm not doing here, and which I should be doing, is I'm actually taking these off as I go now, from now on. I'm actually going to go into a different colour altogether. I'm going to tick this off. So I've done that, and I've done that. Okay. The household expects to receive interest on savings in 250 in September. So that's 250, and I have to go out to my total column here of 250. And the Daly household also expects to receive 400 income from dividends in November. So I have my €400 gone in here. I have my €400 going in here. And at this point, I'm ticking them off and I've completed my income. Okay, so those are both done. I've completed my income, but now I have to get my total. Okay, so now I need to add up everything that I've been doing so far and get my total. So the first thing I do, it's always important here, girls, is I think it's a good idea to add across and add down, and I'll show you how we do that in a minute. So I'm going to start in September. I'm adding together my 1,700, my 1,600 and my 250, and I end up here with 3,550. Okay, I then have my October figure, and that's 3,300. In November, I have a figure of 3,700, and then in December, I have a figure of 3,800. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to add these across, these four figures at the bottom. I'm also going to add the four figures along the side, and I should end up with the same figure. And if I do, it means generally I've included everything, and you know, there's a good chance that I'm correct. So I have 14,350 when I add down. I was going to make a little note of that now. So 14,350, and then when I add across, I'm hoping that I'll get the same, and I do. So that means that that figure should be correct. So that's 14,350. And now that I have that part done, I'm going to move on to my expenditure figure. Okay, so my planned expenditure. The Daly household rents an apartment at a monthly cost of 850. So I'm going to put 850 into each month. And when I add all of those together, I'm just going to go back into my calculator here. 850 multiplied by 4, and I get 3,400. €400. I think just actually for the ease, next time I'm going to keep the kind of same colour I'm working with, girls, just so I'm not going back and forth every time. So Alan pays car tax of €190 in September. So we're going to pop that into September. I have nothing my other months, and my total is 190. So I'm going to tick that off now as well. The dailies will renew. Sorry, I've just ticked off the wrong one. So Nisha's annual car insurance is €600. So we said with annual, we divide by 12. So 600 divided by 12 gives me €50. So my car insurance, and I'm told here I'm paying from September. So every month I have €50. And overall that gives me a figure of €200. The dailies will renew their annual TV license in December at a cost of 160. Okay, so that's happening in December. It's €160 in the month of December. And then that also goes in my total column. Okay, so again, girls, I am going to do all my little subtotals here and see how we go. So I've done that one, so I'm going to tick that off, right? So when I add my 850, my 190 and my €50 together, I get 1,090. I have 900. I have 900. And then I have 1,060. So when I add up and I add across, I have a figure of 3,950. Okay, so that's my fixed expenditure done. So I'm going to move on to my household costs. So household costs are 1,100 per month except in December, and then they'll be an extra 450. So it's 1,100, 1,100, 1,100, and then I'm adding on my 450. So it's 1,550. So I get 4,850 in my total column. Okay, so I'm going to tick that off. My monthly car running costs are expected to be 190. So that means every month I'm going to spend 190, and then there's going to be 150 extra in October. Okay, so that means I'm going to put 190 into everything except October, and then I'm going to add my two figures together. So I have my normal 190 for my running, and then I have 150 for my car service, and then I'm going to add them together and I get €340. And my total then, girls, is 910. Okay, and again I'm ticking that off because I have that done. Bills for light and heat are expected to be 170 in October, so I have €170 here, and 260 in December. The household also expects to pay 380 for home heating oil in November. So I'm going to put that into November. That's 380. And all together, I have €810 euro in my light and heat costs. Okay, so I did that and I did this. Mobile phone bills will cost the house €50 per month. So 50, 50, 50 and 50. That gives me €200. We're ticking it off. And then education costs. So Alan plans to begin a part-time college course in October. So he expects to pay €400 in October. So we'll write in €400 in October. Okay. He also budgets for college costs of €100 in November and December. So altogether, my education costs are €600. So again, girls, this is where I need to total everything up. So I'm adding my 1,100, my 190 and my 50, and I get 1,340. I do the same thing for October. I have a little bit extra in this month. Altogether, I have 2,060. I have my 1,100, my 190, plus my 380, plus my 150. Well, actually just added those two together. So 1,820. And then finally, for December, I add together all my figures and I end up with 2,150. So I just want to check that figure. Sorry, perfect. Okay, so I add together, I'm going to do my up and my down again. Okay, so again, reminding you girls, we're adding downwards. So if I add my 4,850, so this is where I am right now. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to add together these figures. So my 4,850 plus my 910 plus my 810 plus my 200 plus my 600. So I've come out here with 7,370 and I want to double check that that's all correct. So I'm going to add the 1,340, the 2,060, the 1,820 and the 2,150 and I get the same figure, okay? So that gives me comfort, girls, that I've included everything and that I'm in a good position here and that I think everything I've done is correct so far. Okay, so I've now covered off everything except my discretionary income. So we'll cover that now. So birthday presents will cost €80 in September. And there will be 350 spent on presents in December. So altogether that's 430. Entertainment will cost 270 every month except in December, and that goes up a bit in that month. So 270 plus 250 gives me €520. When I add all that together, I have 1,330. Okay, so I've covered off this one, I've covered off this one. So the daily household is planning a short holiday in December and that costs €800. That goes into my total column. So we're nearly there. We're going to finish our discretionary income by getting our subtotal. So I'm adding my 80 and my 270 in September, and that gives me €350. I have 270 in October, 270 in November, and then in December it's a bit more expensive and I have 1,670. When I add now, girls, I'm going to do my checks again. So I think my figure is going to be 2,560. I've added across, that gave me 2,560. And when I add down, I add my 430, my 1,330 and my €800, and I end up with 2,560. Okay. So generally, girls, if I can just follow all of that and, you know, be careful and have attention to detail, that part I'll always be able to do pretty well, okay? So the next part is where if I'm going to make a mistake, it's kind of this part here, people tend to make the mistake. So I need my total expenditure. And I suppose what I want to show you here is what I'm talking about. So I'm going to call this number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. I've also highlighted them in green. My total expenditure column is 1 plus 2 plus 3. So I'm adding all of my green columns together for each month. So for example, now I'm starting here in September and I have 1,090. And I'm going to add on my 1,340, and now I'm going to add on my 350 here, and I end up with a figure of 2,780. I move on to October and I'm going to take my €900 again here, girls. I'm going to add my 2,060 and I'm going to add my 270. And that gives me a figure of 3,230. I'm just going to keep going. I have my 900, my 1,820 and my 270. And that gives me 2,990. And finally, I'm going to add my 1,060. I'm going to add in my 2,150 and my 1,670. So here I have 4,880. Right, so again, I know you'll get sick of doing the same thing over and over again. But now we're just going to go to our total column. So I'm adding my 3,950. I'm adding my 7,370. And I'm adding my 2,560. So that should give me 13,880. At this point, girls, I would just do a quick check that those 4 figures equal the 13,000 as well. So I have my 2,780, my 3,230, my 2,990, and my 4,880, and it gives me 13,880. And now I'm happy that my figures are generally correct. Okay, so just to give me space, I'm actually going to get rid of that. So again, this is where I suppose my formulas will come into play. So to get net cash, which is the next thing I have to do, I'm going to write it here for you. Net cash is equal to total income minus total expenditure. And I have to do that for every month. Okay, so let's do, if I just highlight this for a second, this is my total income line. Okay. I'm going to take my 3,550. That's my income. I'm going to take away my total expenditure, which is 2,780. And I get a net cash figure of 770. I'm going to just keep doing that for every month. 3,300 minus 3,230. So I have a net cash of €70 for October. In November, I have income of 3,700. I take away my expenditure, 2,990. That gives me net cash of €710. I then have my income in December of 3,800. That was an expensive month. I had expenditure of 4,880. So that gives me a minus figure of 1,080. And all that means, girls, is that in December, I'm going to spend more than what I earn, okay? So we have to look at our total now and get our total. So we have 14,350. I'm taking away my 13,880, and I'm left here with a net cash of 470. Okay, so this is the trickiest bit really, girls, but it's not, like, once I've kind of done it a couple of times, I should be fine. So the two things I need to know at this point is that to get my closing cash, which is this one here, closing cash equals net cash plus opening cash. That's essentially, I'm going to add those two together to give me this. And then closing cash for 1 month becomes opening cash for the next month. So let's start off. So I'm adding my 770, I'm doing my net cash, 770, and I'm adding my opening cash of 240 together, and that's giving me €1,010. Draw in the arrows here, girls, to remind yourself. My closing cash for 1 month becomes my opening cash for the next month. At this point now, I'm adding my net cash and my opening cash together like we've already done. And when I add 70 to 1,010, I get 1,080. Closing cash for 1 month becomes my opening cash for the next month. That's my 1,080. I'm adding on my net cash and I get 1,790. Closing cash for 1 month, you're going to get the drill, becomes the opening cash for the next month. So I have 1,790 minus 1,080. That gives me €710. And I'm adding together my 470 plus my 240 over here, and I've ended up with my €710. These figures always balance at the end, and that's a sign that I've done everything correctly. Okay, so girls, I really hope this helps, and that it was good practice for you. Bye-bye.